let's stick with the first part of this. So I'm just saying if, I am not saying that this is certainly not said in fact yet, but I believe this is what's happening. Um, if the Fed is creating a new CBDC, digital currency,
Mm.
which I'm sure they hope will be conflated with the cryptos that everybody is already casual with. Um, if they're doing that, and then lately you see the thing with XRP. Well, XRP uses this ledger. I don't know if you've stayed with all of this. It's a bottomless well of nonsense. But the point being is the ledger of XRP allows a top-down configuration. It's not peer-to-peer. It's a controlling surveillance dystopian currency.
Yeah.
So they didn't talk about it for a while, and I think, and please tear this apart because I'm an amateur. I just want to hear your viewpoint on this. I think it will be underpinned with the SDR, and that opens up another bunch of stuff, but I'm not going to go there right now. The point being is, under the CARES Act, it already does say that when they help people under COVID, supposedly that's how all this went, and when they doubled the money supply, it said the money would be paid out from the Treasury. But if there were funds left over, it would be paid back to the Fed and the Treasury. And I think somehow with that loop, they're conflating things. They're merging things. Perhaps that's what they were referring to. I haven't been able to figure it out otherwise because nobody else has said it since. And I think when the words came out of their mouth, somebody probably authorized it and then within 20 seconds said, oh no, and then turned around and wanted that not part of the public record. The reason all this, you can see where I'm going, I'm sure. If the Fed and the Treasury are merged, then the Fed ostensibly can issue the money of the United States. And if it can do that, then it might be issuing CBDC, which they'll put a clever name on, like Fed Now, let's all get out there and go to the new currency. Then you've all of a sudden got everybody in CBDC. And I'll go one step further since I'm busy sharing my creativity with you. About 6 months ago, I was driving through a town in Arizona, and on the Burger King sign, it said, we now accept EBT. Well, I don't know if you understand this, but EBT is basically food stamps. So they're not supposed to accept them at any form of restaurant, but they do now. And then I started thinking that's how they're going to get it into public hands. Because what I think will happen, I'm going to keep going with this, but give me your full feedback because I'm actually unloading my latest sort of brainstorm from yesterday. There's a woman named Catherine Austin Fitts that used to be the Undersecretary of HUD, Urban Housing. Are you familiar with her?
Yeah. Vague.
Okay,
I mean, vague. Yeah. Never met her, but I've certainly heard of her. Let's put it that way.
well, yesterday she came out and said that she believes the reason Trump is pushing for Bitcoin to be a reserve asset is because the pressures from Wall Street, the people who are in Bitcoin want to get out with some profits and get out intact because right now the future doesn't look so bright. And what she believes is they're going to get it approved by the government. Then they're going to move everybody's retirement assets into Bitcoin. They'll cause a blow off top. These people will get out of there with bazillions of dollars. And then the average American will be brought to their knees and they won't be able to eat anymore. And at that point, yes, don't worry, we've got this all covered. We're sending EBT cards to everybody, and we've expanded it so that you can buy a television set at Walmart if you want to. And that's it. And that's how we all got on CBDC, and the rest is history. Our grandchildren are a number and not a name. What do you think of that?
Well, I think you should put it in a novel. No, let's. I'll just try and sort of take apart the whole thing.
Yeah, please do.
I'll probably miss various elements of it. The first thing I think one's got to understand is that governments are wedded to fiat currencies. They want the ability to print currency. Right. And the way it works is quite simple. It comes off the Fed's balance sheet, and you have, that you have a liability on one side and you have an asset on the other. Now, the liability is in the form of coin and notes, and and also bank reserves. The assets on the other side are typically government debt or agency debt or something like that, which they have. So that's the way it actually works from an accounting point of view. And
Right.
an increase in the amount of currency or um, paper, if you like, in the economy, always has to be matched on the balance sheet by an increase in the assets. It can't work any other way.
Right.
The Where the CBDC has caught everybody's imagination is that it would work in the same way as far as the central bank is concerned, but it would be issued by the central bank, not by a commercial bank. Now, it could be issued by the central bank through a commercial bank to members of the public, businesses, whatever. But the whole point of it, if you follow what the Bank of International Settlements, which have been running the sort of coordinating the information on all this, what
Right.
they've been saying is that this could be a useful tool for government to stimulate the parts of the economy which it believes need stimulating. Now, we've just had this conversation about, government should just not get involved with the economy. So
Right.
this is actually the next stage, if you like, in that sort of line of thinking.
Right. That's
But
frightening.
yeah, yes, it is frightening. But there's one aspect of this which I think is very, very important. I note that the commercial banks have hardly said a dicky bird on this. I mean, they've kept very, very quiet on the whole thing.
Right.
And I look at two things. Firstly, how long will it take for the Fed or a government department or whatever, to sort of back test all the software and the whole thing. Bearing in mind, we're talking about having accounts with in the US, we're talking about a population of what, 380 million or something, and we're talking
Right.
about businesses up and down the country and all the rest of it, and
Right.
all the monitoring procedures, because this is also a means of keeping nasties out. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you can determine who they go to. That's the whole idea.
Right.
I mean, developing all the software and all the rest of it so it is absolutely bulletproof is going to take a long time. I don't know, 5 years minimum, I think.
A lot of this, to me, I mean, this is the reason I brought up World War II. I An awful lot of this smacks of the things that the Nazis were doing, and
Oh,
now it's
completely, yeah,
associated with us. It just
completely,
drives me nuts,
yeah,
you know. And then, like, even just go back 20 years, because the way they've been doing all of this, you probably understand, is they created emergencies that weren't emergencies, and then they sidestepped the Constitution as if it were in our own best interest.
yeah,
Every time somebody now says we're going to protect you, I'm like, what the
yeah,
heck are they going to do now? I don't want any
yeah,
more protection. I've had enough of this,
yeah.
you know. And actually, I'm speaking to you from Mexico. I don't know what's going to happen inside the US, but I want to have a running start if I can't get
Yeah,
out.
exactly, exactly. Anyway, let me continue on the
Oh, sure. Sorry
CBDC.
about that. Continue.
No, not at all. Um, there is one further point in this, and that is that unless this really does suit the commercial banks, and I can't see how it does, because it's wandering into their patch, if you like.
Right.
Bear in mind that everybody elected, Democrat and Republican, to Congress and all the rest of it in America is bankrolled by a bank.
Right.
And as one businessman said a long time ago, a good politician is one who's bought and stays bought. So I really don't see that these turkeys are going to vote for Christmas. I mean,
Yeah.
that is a practical hurdle in the whole thing.
Right.
You were also referring to currency actually issued by the Treasury rather than by the Fed. Now, as I understand it, there is a strict limit on that. So that doesn't actually get them very far.
Right.
I think the limit is something like 280 billion or something. I mean, it's a figure sort of like that, which it is chicken feed in these, you know,
I'm confused. And
in
no,
this environment.
walk me through this because this may be something I don't know about. Tell what are you saying exactly about the Treasury and how much they can create? What in reference to what?
Well, originally, I mean, look, I'm not an expert on this at all. The person actually who will tell you all about it is James Turk. I mean, he knows chapter verse the whole thing.
Okay.
But as I understand it, going back to your point, before the Fed existed, dollars were issued by the Treasury, by the
Right.
US Treasury.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now, there was a strict limit on what they could do. And the limit, I think, was probably tied to gold reserves, whatever, whatever. I don't
Right.
know the mechanism, but
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
was that fixed thing. When the Fed came into existence and started issuing its own dollars, those dollars still existed. But
Okay.
they've sort of rather disappeared into the background, but they are distinct from a Fed dollar. That's the point. I
Right.
don't know the details and so on, but the history of it seems to me that that's the way in which you've got these sort of two currencies side by side,
Uh-huh.
and of course, because the Fed issue is now so enormous, and we're not just talking about sort of physical notes. We're also talking about bank reserves. So
Right.